Kingdom Hearts Union Cross's story has now been fully told. However, it's still left several mysteries for us to think about while we wait for the next piece of the Kingdom Hearts saga. I plan to talk about some of these mysteries in their own videos over the next few weeks, so if you have any questions you'd like to see discussed, please leave me a comment and I'll attempt to address them. The first topic I wanted to cover is this. In the ending sequence of Union Cross, we see a man bearing Brain's face walk into the Keyblade graveyard with both the Master of Masters Keyblade and the mysterious black box in hand. However, we also see someone many years in the future having materialized in the original Scarlet Red Kylum that also appears to be Brain. There are some answers to this, such as that Luxu has possessed Brain's body and ejected his heart, that one of the Brains is the nobody of the other, or that some sort of Yozora-related shenanigans have occurred, whereby one of the people is bearing an appearance that doesn't belong to them. And while I do like those theories, I wish today to present mine. My theory is that both of these people technically are Brain, and I'll present my evidence as to why I believe that. Again, I love discussing the lore of Kingdom Hearts, so please respond with your own theories, and whether or not you disagree with mine below. Let's get started by reviewing the relevant clues. In Lauriam's attempt at searching for Strelitzia, he tried to look through the Data Daybreak Town's backup archives. He was unsuccessful in finding Strelitzia's data backup, but the backups of all the other Dandelions were used in the Union Cross's PvP mode. So the Dandelions wouldn't be fighting each other, but would instead be made to fight each other's data backups. The 13th Darkness, using the numbering system from my previous explanation video, escorted Maleficent to the Data Daybreak Town Tower's basement. She fought Lauriam, destroying one arc, and then escaped the Data Daybreak Town using another, and finally escaped the real Daybreak Town into the future using one real arc. Luxu then entered the room and sent the true Dandelion into the future with another of the arcs. He then walked towards darkness with Keyblade drawn. We do not get to see what happens next, but it seems like some sort of confrontation was imminent, though no pods are destroyed or taken in the process. Elrena informed the Union leaders of the news that she had previously seen Luxu with Strelitzia's data in the data world. The data backup was able to walk upright, seemingly under its own power. The Union leaders discussed the possibilities of them having their own data backups. They had only been able to activate the Dandelion's backups for use in PvP, but perhaps someone with the proper know-how could make use of the Union leaders' backups, as evidenced by Luxu walking with Strelitzia's. The Union leaders began their escape from the doomed data world. Brain, Lauriam, Elrena and Ventus left the data world and entered the real one, taking 4 of the 5 usable arcs from this world. Now in the real world, Brain begins sending Lauriam, Elrena and Ventus into the future, using 3 of the real arcs and leaving 2 more usable ones remaining. Before they depart, Brain and Lauriam again discuss Strelitzia's data backup, reiterating that these data backups of the Union leaders absolutely do exist and that Strelitzia's will serve as Lauriam's waypoint. The moment the 3 are whisked away, Luxu enters and talks to Brain. Brain informs Luxu of his plan to awaken all of the remaining Dandelions, starting with Ephema, Skuld, and the player. No matter how long it takes, no matter the cost to his own life, Brain is determined to see this through. Luxu compliments him on his intelligence, and cryptically tells him that it's a shame this lifetime is the only one Brain's got. We again do not see what happens immediately after this, but we do know that either Luxu or Brain must have sent 2 pods from the real world back for Skuld and Ephema. Skuld and Ephema take these pods back into the real world, leaving the player behind and trapped in the data world, along with the 4 unaccounted for darknesses. 1 pod now remains in Data Daybreak Town. When Skuld and Ephema arrive in the real world, Brain and Luxu are nowhere to be seen. Skuld and Ephema step outside to survey the carnage being wrought on Daybreak Town, and then return to the basement. Though the cutscene implies this happens very quickly, don't be fooled. Skuld and Ephema are in the basement, and to reach the roof would surely take several minutes of staircases and elevators in both directions, meaning there is a several minute gap that we don't get to see. Skuld travels into the future, Ephema does not, and at this point, the room comes crumbling down and Daybreak Town is destroyed. I don't see how any more pods could have left after this point. Ephema's pod washes ashore among the ruins of Daybreak Town, where he begins construction of the original Scarlet Red Kylum. Sometime later in the Keyblade graveyard, a man bearing Brain's appearance is seen carrying the Master's Keyblade and the black box. Even later in that original Scarlet Red Kylum, a boy that appears to be Brain materializes, as the Book of Prophecies likely said that he would. he is greeted by Sigurd and is concerned for his friend's safety and whereabouts, the friends he believes time-traveled at the same moment he did. So what does this tell us? Some things I find interesting here are that the brain that arrives in Scala ad Caelum, for all intents and purposes, seems to be the brain that we know. His hat, that has finally been returned to him, correctly fits his head, something that Sigurd seems to notice as well. He shows concern for his friend's safety, wondering if they also made it to this point in time, and immediately recognizes Ephema as one of his best friends. But hang on a second now. How can Brain be wondering if his friends also arrived at this point in time? Our initial assumption should be that Brain must not have taken a pod if he did indeed time travel. At the time he and Luxu were conversing, only 2 pods remained in the real Daybreak Town, and we know both of them must have been sent back to collect Skald and Ephema. In fact, the only possible way Brain could have travelled through time in a pod is if he used the one remaining pod in Data Daybreak Town. Let's hold on this idea for a moment. If this is the real Brain, then what about the one seen in the Keyblade graveyard? We know that Luxu's secret role was to hand the Master of Masters Keyblade to his own apprentice one day, and then keep an eye on it from afar while awaiting the countless years for the Master of Masters' return. So, logically, the next person, apart from Luxu, that wields this Keyblade should be Luxu's first apprentice. We also know that in order to complete his task, Luxu must sequester his heart into new vessels as his current one reaches the end of its natural life, allowing him to artificially extend his own life so that he and the Master's Keyblade can fully reform the Master of Masters in the future as both the medium and provider of memories respectively. So there is the possibility that Luxu took Brain as his first vessel, and this is actually Luxu's heart within Brain's body that we are seeing at this moment. However, if we take the 12th secret report of Kingdom Hearts 3 to be accurate, and I see no reason not to, we can gain some clarification here. In said report, Luxu writes, amid the chaos, he bequeathed the Keyblade to one of the Union leaders, just as the Master instructed. He watched as the 5 were sent to another world line, at no small cost, ensuring the line of Keyblade wielders will live on. And now, Keybladeless, he must depart this land to fulfill his final task. This means casting his own body aside and sojourning his heart in vessel after vessel, as many as it takes. So Luxu tells us, clear as day, that he passed the Keyblade on to one of the Union leaders before switching to a new body, which would make sense, given that Luxu was likely in his late teens, early 20s at most, at the conclusion of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. His body will likely serve him for many more years before he requires a new vessel. And again, he states that he gave his Keyblade to a Union leader. We last saw him with his Keyblade in hand during the cutscene with that 13th Darkness, so the window that he had to give it to any other Union leader, apart from Brain, is extremely small. To me, it only makes logical sense if during this unseen period of time, Luxu asked Brain to become his first apprentice and bequeath the Master's Keyblade and the Black Box to him. So of course, herein lies the problem. I don't see any reason to believe that both of these people aren't Brain, yet how can they exist in 2 places at once? Again, I will acknowledge that there are other plausible theories about the possibility that Brain has a nobody, or that he time-traveled from this point to Scala, or that there is a Yozora situation happening, but I personally don't think that's what's going on. Let's go back to Luxu's line, "It's a shame this lifetime is the only one you've got." Remember that Brain is an intelligent guy, who moments ago, 4 whole lines ago in fact, was talking to Lauriam about the fact that his sister's data backup absolutely does exist. In fact, the update went extremely far out of its way to continually remind us about this fact that we honestly could have taken for granted at this point. In my mind, the developers did this because Brain suggests to Luxu that there is a way he could live more than one lifetime, if they retrieve his data backup from Data Daybreak Town, just as Luxu had with Strelitzia's. Okay, is this plausible? While I personally don't think that Luxu needs a pod to enter or exit the data world, let's just assume that they need one to enter. Well, assuming Brain and Luxu agree to the idea of retrieving the data Brain, they would first need to send back the pods for Ephema, Skald, and the player. I don't believe Brain would agree to anything without first ensuring the safety of his friends. We do see that 2 pods arrive in Data Daybreak Town, joining the one that was left initially unused. Skald and Ephema take these pods and then walk to the roof. As I mentioned earlier, that trip would have possibly provided several minutes of free time that Brain and Luxu could have potentially used to take those pods, once again, into the data world, entered, retrieved the data backup of Brain, and then re-entered the real world using the 3 pods that remained in the Data Daybreak Town. Remember, there was one pod remaining in the Data Daybreak Town, initially intended to be used by the player, but unfortunately our character never gets the opportunity to use it. Regardless, if Brain and Luxu actually re-enter the Data Daybreak Town or not, I feel like that one remaining pod must get used to ensure the Data Daybreak Town is properly sealed and the 4 trapped darknesses cannot escape, and Data Brain is a likely candidate for the occupant of that pod. So now, in this hypothetical scenario, there is a real brain and a data brain together in the real world, and one of them will travel forward in time to arrive in the original Scala at Kylum, while the other will stay in this time and become Luxu's first apprentice. If this is correct, I believe it is the actual brain that travels forward in time. My reasoning for that is that I believe him to be Ericus's grandfather. Once Brain time travels into the future from this point using the Ark that was originally in Data Daybreak Town and intended for the player, he will materialize in the future using his hat as a medium, meaning he will likely have to give the hat to Luxu in this time now so that Luxu can take it with him and ensure that it ends up among some recovered items of Daybreak Town, so the brain may reform from it in the future in Scala at Kylum. This would also explain why the brain in the dark robe is not seen sporting a hat, because the hat was taken away to be used in the future. And now that he is in the future, I believe the Master Defender Keyblade, and likely the Book of Prophecies, will be returned to him, and I'm going to assume that the Master Defender will eventually be handed down to his child, and then to his grandson, Ericus. My main reasoning for thinking that the real brain is the one that travels forward in time is, well, I don't like the idea of a computer backup of a person being the father to anything. It starts getting a little too weird, even for Kingdom Hearts. We know something bad will happen to Ericus's grandfather, and though I threw out the idea in an earlier video that Brain may end up being the person in the blue robe that watches over the reborn Xehanort, that isn't really the focus of this video. So let's say all of this is somehow correct. I should note that I will admit I'm not exactly sure where Data Brain would get a sufficient vessel from. We saw that, though Data Strelitzia was able to walk through Data Daybreak Town with ease, if that was indeed her data backup in the white robe that we know as the true Dandelion, we can see that it is completely unable to move and is slumped under Luxu's arm. I personally understand this to be a result of it not having a real body to occupy at this time, because of course Strelitzia's own body was slain by one of the darknesses. But what if Data Brain could perhaps use the actual Brain's body as a vessel? If Brain at this point immediately time travels into the future, having his body stripped away by the time travel device, would that then leave the body available to be used by the Data Brain? Again, explaining why the Data Brain, as I'm thinking of him, doesn't have a hat? And again, if somehow everything I've said is correct, I would still need to explain why I think Data Brain would even agree to become Luxu's apprentice in the first place. That will be the focus of its own video, but to give you a hint, I feel like Brain's goal, no matter whether the brain is real or data, would be to rescue the remaining dandelions. Perhaps Luxu would have given him something that would allow this brain to keep the dandelions, heck, even the entire Data Daybreak Town, at an extremely close distance. No matter what is in the black box, I feel like it must not be Luxu that is holding on to it from this moment onwards. A large portion of Kingdom Hearts 3 is devoted to the Organization and Maleficent both attempting to locate the black box, with Xigbar not willing to be completely honest with his fellow Organization members about why they are seeking it. I feel like Luxu must have intended to hide it from himself, to force himself not to know the location until the time was right, and if it was Brain that walked away with the box and hid it, that would be a very logical reason as to why Xigbar doesn't know where it is. But why would the box be described as non-existing at this time? Why would it only appear after the completion of the Keyblade War? Perhaps it was hidden in a place the forces of light and darkness were unable to reach. I have wondered, what would the Data Brain spend his life doing if this theory was true? Perhaps he too underwent some crazy experiments in a world of neither light nor darkness, in an attempt to rescue his lost dandelion friends. Perhaps he even became so obsessed with his quest that his heart accidentally took control of another vessel while in this strange world, shaping it beyond recognition. Okay, I've definitely drifted far off the course now, but now it's your turn to tell me, what do you think of this theory? Do you believe that Luxu and Brain retrieved the data backup of Brain from the Data Daybreak Town? And that one brain travelled into the future, while another stayed in the present, and inherited the black box and Master's Keyblade? It just fits so neatly in my mind. Brain had recently given away his Keyblade to Ephema, and now the brain staying in this time period, the left brain if you will be given the Master's Keyblade to use in this time, while the other brain will likely immediately regain his original Keyblade in the future now that Ephema has seemingly passed. I just think that the overt mentioning of data backups, seemingly out of nowhere, while there were so many other things to be discussed in the finale, has to be some sort of a clue, but I'm more than happy to be wrong on this. I really want to know your own theories, and I hope to have more theories for you soon. Please let me know what else you would like to see me discuss. Until next time, all the best friends, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.